Hey everyone, welcome back to the deep dive. So, you know how some industries are just always pushing the boundaries, like really embracing tech and innovation to change how they do things?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, today we're zeroing in on one of those, a real innovator, Air New Zealand. And get this, we've got some fresh market research from Cognitive Market Research, just came out in January of last year, 2025.
Oh, that's a great one.
Yeah.
Super in-depth,
Mhm.
It really gets into how Air New Zealand is using technology, not just in one area, but across their entire operation, really strategically.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to do today, pull out the key insights from this research so we can understand what it means for us, the passengers, and for the future of flying as a whole.
Because it touches on everything, right? From
Mhm.
how they're using technology to enhance the customer experience to their push for sustainability, how they're
Mm.
becoming even more efficient, even the challenges they're facing as they bring in all this new tech.
Right. The good and the bad. It's all in there. And speaking of doing things well, did you know airlineratings.com actually named Air New Zealand the world's safest airline back in 2024?
Oh, wow. Yeah, they emphasize their pilots' expertise.
Yeah. I mean,
Right.
talk about operational excellence, right? So it's clear they're already doing a lot of things right. Now they're adding these technological advancements on top of that. So first things first, let's dive into how they're using tech to really personalize your journey.
I think what's really cool from a passenger standpoint is how they're using data to tailor your experience. The research really digs into this. They're using these AI-powered platforms that analyze tons of customer data.
Yeah, and it goes way beyond just knowing your name when you book a flight.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's
Ah,
more about understanding you as a traveler, like your past trips, your preferences,
yeah.
do you usually pick a window seat, what kind of meals do you go for, things like that.
Okay, so they're paying attention.
Right. And then they use all that info to make recommendations that are actually relevant to you.
I see, like the things you'd actually want, not just random suggestions.
Yeah, exactly. So it could be anything from flight options and hotel suggestions to like those extra services that make your trip smoother. This whole hyper-personalization thing is really interesting. I mean, on one hand, it's so convenient, but it also brings up questions about how that data is being used and protected. It's a big discussion in the industry right now.
Right, that makes sense. You want that convenience, but you want to know your information is safe. So it seems like their mobile app is a big part of this whole personalized experience thing. The research really emphasizes that, how important it is for passengers.
Oh yeah, the app is key. It's not just for booking anymore. It's more like your connection to your trip in real time. Instant updates, your boarding pass right there on your phone, even personalized notifications. Super helpful if your travel plans suddenly change.
Right, so it keeps you in the loop no matter what.
Yep, keeps things running smoothly.
Uh,
And speaking of that, think about those chatbots we've all seen online.
yeah, those can be hit or miss, honestly. Sometimes they're helpful, sometimes they just make you more frustrated.
That's true. But the research highlights how Air New Zealand is using them strategically to handle those common, everyday questions that passengers have. The kind of things that pop up all the time.
Okay, so they're like the first line of defense for customer service.
Exactly. So their human agents can focus on the more complex issues, the stuff that really needs a person's touch, makes the whole support system more efficient, and hopefully less stressful for passengers when they need help.
Makes sense. So you're not waiting on hold forever for a simple question. Now, this is something I think is super cool. The research talks about them using virtual and augmented reality.
Oh, yeah. That's pretty innovative.
Imagine, taking a VR tour of the plane's cabin before you even leave home, or checking out your destination through augmented reality. I mean, that just adds a whole new dimension to planning a trip.
Right. It builds excitement and anticipation. Like you're already connected to your trip before you even step on the plane.
Mm.
And when you think about why you, as a traveler, might choose one airline over another, these kind of experiences can really make a difference.
Yeah, it's not just about the flight anymore. It's about the whole experience from start to finish.
Exactly. Creating those memorable moments, adding value beyond the flight itself, that kind of thing can really foster loyalty. It's less transactional and more about building a genuine connection.
Right. Makes you feel like more than just a ticket number. Okay, so they're clearly focused on making your journey as smooth and engaging as possible. But the research also delves into sustainability, which is such a hot topic these days. What's Air New Zealand doing on that front?
Well, sustainability is definitely front and center in their innovation strategy. The research makes that very clear. They're putting a lot of resources into research and development, especially for sustainable aviation fuels, or SF.
Right, SF, we hear about that a lot. It's supposed to be key to making flying more eco-friendly.
Yeah, it's a big deal. It's a huge step towards reducing the carbon footprint of air travel, and they're also working on designing more fuel-efficient planes, which is a win-win, right? It's good for the environment and helps the airline save money in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like a no-brainer. But it's not just about those big, flashy initiatives, right?
Right. The research mentions some really interesting, less obvious ways they're using tech, too.
Like what? Give me an example.
Okay, so have you heard of these AI-powered flight optimization systems?
Vaguely. I'm not exactly sure how they work, though.
So basically, it's like having this super smart co-pilot
Hmm.
that analyzes all kinds of real-time data, like, weather patterns, wind shear, stuff like that, air traffic, even the specific fuel burn characteristics of the plane. And then it uses all that to calculate the absolute most efficient route and altitude for that flight at that very moment.
Wow, so it's constantly adjusting based on all these different factors.
Right. Exactly. And even tiny adjustments to the flight path or altitude can lead to big fuel savings over the course of the flight. And when you multiply that across their whole fleet, thousands of flights, it really adds up. Makes a significant dent in emissions.
Okay, that's impressive, like finding the perfect sweet spot for each flight to save fuel. And they're thinking about sustainability even when you're not in the air, right? I read something about them trying to reduce waste by going digital.
Yeah, that's a big one. The research mentions that, like, replacing all those paper-based processes with digital alternatives, it's actually kind of surprising how many industries still rely on paper for so much.
It's true. I feel like I'm always signing something.
Right. So that shift to digital could have a huge impact. And they're also making changes to the actual stuff they use on flights, like switching to biodegradable materials for those single-use items. Plus, they're using electric vehicles on the ground at the airport.
Okay, so they're thinking about it from all angles. It's not just a marketing gimmick.
Yeah, it seems like they're really trying to embed sustainability into everything they do, minimize their impact at every step of the journey.
Good for them. Okay, so we've talked about how they're using tech to make your trip better and how they're tackling sustainability. But technology also plays a huge role in their own operations, right? Making sure everything runs smoothly behind the scenes, which ultimately benefits us as passengers.
Right. Technology is the backbone of their efficiency, and that translates into more reliable service for you. The research really digs into how they're using automated systems for all the complicated logistics of running an airline. Things like scheduling all their flights, assigning crews, even handling all the baggage.
Wow, that sounds incredibly complex.
It is.
Yeah.
But these sophisticated systems can process huge amounts of data and make decisions much faster and more accurately than humans could.
So it's like having a super efficient air traffic controller for their whole operation, all powered by technology.
Exactly. And then there's the whole thing about using big data analytics to predict when a plane might need maintenance.
Oh, yeah, I read about that. That's got to be a game changer for minimizing delays, right?
Absolutely.
Oh,
Because it's all about being proactive.
okay, explain that to me. I'm curious.
So they're constantly analyzing data from sensors on the planes, tracking their maintenance logs, all that stuff. And they can start to see patterns,
Uh-huh.
predict when a part might need servicing or replacing even before it actually breaks down.
So they're staying ahead of the game.
Right. It drastically reduces the chances of unexpected downtime, which means flights are more likely to leave on time. And, that makes for a much smoother travel experience for everyone.
I can definitely see the benefits there. And the research also talks about them using real-time monitoring tools to deal with disruptions like weather delays or, those unexpected things that always seem to pop up when you're traveling.
Right. Because things don't always go according to plan, do they? But these tools give them a complete up-to-the-minute picture of what's happening across their entire network.
So what happens if a flight is delayed, say, because of bad weather?
Well, the system can instantly analyze how that delay is going to affect everything else,
Yeah.
connecting flights, crew availability,
Mm.
passenger itineraries.
Wow.
Yeah. And then they can proactively reach out to passengers who are affected,
Huh.
offer rebooking options, alternative arrangements, whatever they need to do to minimize the disruption. And they're using predictive analytics, too, to optimize how they allocate resources,
Meaning?
like making sure they have enough staff and equipment where they're needed most to help prevent delays. So yeah, technology is working behind the scenes to keep everything running smoothly.
That's really fascinating. But, I mean, it can't be all smooth sailing, right? Adopting all this new technology must come with its own set of challenges. The research touches on some of the hurdles that Air New Zealand faces in this whole process.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's not always easy. One of the biggest challenges is just the sheer cost of it all. Implementing these new systems, the hardware, the software, the infrastructure, it's a huge investment upfront. And the research points out that it's not just a one-time cost either. They need to keep upgrading, keep things up to date to stay competitive.
Right. Technology is constantly evolving, so there's this ongoing need to invest, invest, invest. And of course, in this digital age, you can't talk about tech without talking about data security. That's another big concern the research highlights, making sure all that sensitive passenger data is protected, especially with all these privacy regulations getting stricter globally.
Oh, absolutely. Airlines handle so much personal data, it's mind-boggling. So protecting that information from cyber attacks, making sure they're complying with GDPR and all those regulations, it's not just a technical challenge, it's a massive responsibility,
Mm.
legally and ethically.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I imagine it's not always easy to integrate all this new fancy technology with their older systems.
Right. You often have these legacy systems that weren't designed to work with the latest innovations. So making sure everything talks to each other, that the data flows smoothly between these different platforms, that can be a huge headache. Takes a lot of careful planning and execution.
Yeah, no room for error there. And let's not forget the people involved. The research emphasizes the importance of training staff to use all this new technology effectively.
Oh, definitely. You can have the most amazing tech in the world, but if your employees don't know how to use it, it's useless. So investing in training, making sure everyone is comfortable and proficient with the new tools and processes is critical. And it's not just about initial training either. It's about ongoing support, upskilling as technology changes.
Right, because it never stops changing. So it seems like Air New Zealand has this balancing act to manage, investing in all this cool cutting edge stuff while also keeping things affordable. The research touches on that, how they're constantly trying to find that sweet spot between innovation and cost effectiveness.
Yeah, it's a tough one. They have to make sure these advancements are not only making things better for you, the passenger, but also making sense financially, contributing to the long-term health of the airline. And they need to be agile too. Consumer preferences change, environmental regulations change. So they have to be able to adapt, refine their approach to keep up with all the moving parts.
So how do they stay ahead of the curve? How do they ensure they're innovating for the long haul?
Well, the research outlines a few key strategies. Collaboration is a big one. They're partnering with tech companies, startups, research institutions, all sorts of experts.
Makes sense. Why try to do everything yourself when you can tap into that outside expertise?
Exactly. They're also involved in global initiatives and innovation labs, looking beyond their own backyard to see what's happening out there, what trends are emerging, what groundbreaking tech is on the horizon. And internally, they're really focused on keeping their employees in the loop, providing regular workshops and training programs.
So not just bringing in new tech, but making sure their team is equipped to use it and to contribute their own ideas.
Yeah, exactly. It's about creating a culture of innovation where everyone's encouraged to embrace new tech and think outside the box. And importantly, they're not just throwing technology at the wall and seeing what sticks. They're actually paying attention to what their customers are saying, using data to figure out where technology can truly make a difference.
So it's data-driven, customer-centric innovation.
Exactly. They're actively seeking out feedback, analyzing it, and using those insights to guide their strategy. So it's a constant cycle of evaluation and improvement, making sure their tech is aligned with the real needs of their passengers and other stakeholders.
So to wrap things up, this deep dive into Air New Zealand using this cognitive market research has been really eye-opening. We see a company that's deeply committed to using technology across every aspect of their business, from the passenger experience to sustainability and their own internal operations. They're facing challenges, sure, but they're also proactively working to stay ahead of the curve.
Right. And this research really highlights the interconnectedness of it all. Technology isn't some separate thing. It's woven into everything they do.
Hmm.
The customer experience, their environmental impact, how they run their business day to day.
It's all connected, and it makes you wonder what other industries could take a page from Air New Zealand's playbook. Adopt technology in a way that's thoughtful and balanced with a focus on sustainability and the customer, and thinking about how much they rely on data to personalize your experience. How do you think that balance between personalized service and data privacy will play out in the future of travel? based on what we're seeing from Air New Zealand. It's a question worth pondering no matter what field you're in, I think.
Absolutely. These trends go way beyond just the airline industry. It's definitely worth reflecting on how they might play out in your own life, professionally and personally.
Great points. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you on the next one.